But thank you, one, for joining us today for the masterclass with Yukon Gear and Axle. We're so excited to have them as a partner and so excited for them to join us today and give us so much of their insights. So let's jump in. I'm Nate Buelow. I'm from onX Offroad. I lead up our elite business. And we've also got Gus Pyeatt here from Yukon Gear and Axle. Gus is the head of technical support and training at Yukon. Gus, give us a little intro. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm head of technical support and training here at Yukon Gear and Axle. Like you said, I've been with the company since about 2003. Started in sales, kind of was a mechanic by trade previously. Avid wheeler, avid diesel guy, tow rigs, all that kind of stuff. Kind of, love the outdoors, love to get out there, be with nature, test my vehicles, limits and stuff. I'm an old school scout guy, so really into the old iron. I got when I'm down traveling in Arizona, got a fleet of Jeeps that we go and we wheel with and stuff down there. A lot of late model Wranglers and Gladiators and stuff that we drive. I got one down there. There's a quote unquote rental that is pretty much mine anytime I'm down in the Phoenix area and stuff. So that's a couple times a year for classes and stuff.
Nice.
Otherwise, I got a 1-ton Dodge diesel that I go and beat on a lot. Tow rig, you name it. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. It's always good having the authentic source here that has absolutely been working on all this stuff and wheeling on the regular. So we've got a lot of questions to go through tonight, Gus, and we'll just kind of keep rolling through them. For everybody that is in attendance, what's on the docket today? So you heard our intros. You're going to hear a little bit from Gus about Yukon and just some of the upgrades at, I would say, at a core level. We're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of them and where to get started. And then if you do have questions, please put them into the chat. It looks like we're hearing somebody that can't hear. I think we've tested it. Hopefully everybody else can hear us, but please let us know in the chat if you cannot. That being said, if you've got a really specific question for Gus, please throw that into the chat. We'd love to hear them. We'd love to help y'all. And if not, we'll have all your info afterwards that we can certainly pass on to the experts here at Yukon. So Yukon, Gus, please tell us a little bit about Yukon, just in general. Like, what do y'all do? What's kind of your core ethos?
Well, everybody that works at Yukon, we're all enthusiasts. We're all in the market. We all love to play. We all love to have fun. We're not a bunch of stiffs out there, driving desks and stuff. So we got guys with LJs. We got guys with Cherokees. We got Toyota guys. We got a ton of diesel guys. Everybody loves to get out there and get off road. We love to play. We love to race. We're title sponsors for a lot of the off-road series out and stuff out there. I just got back a couple weeks ago from King of the Hammers and stuff. Spent a week down there on the lake bed. Amazing time. Got to meet a lot of people out there. Got to do a lot of work on rigs. Beautiful time.
Love that. What type of rigs do you and Yukon really focus in on? More full size? Like, give us a little breakdown on some of the products that are available.
I would say that probably the primary rigs for the off-road market for us is going to be the Jeep crowd and the Toyota crowd. We do also get a lot into the full-size truck market and stuff, so we're not leaving the guys out on the East Coast and the Southeast out of the game by any means. You guys up in the Northeast that are really into your full-size trucks and stuff because you don't really have tight trails like we do on the West Coast and stuff. We got you guys covered as well. Biggest things lately really been like the late model Jeep Wranglers and the new Toyotas and stuff. Ton of overland guys getting into it and stuff, starting to wake up, start to realize the huge benefits that traction improvements and re-gearing can make for your overland experience and just overall driving in general.
Sure. Let's touch in a little bit about that, because I think for a lot of us, we've heard the phrase lockers before light bars when we're out on the trail and we're making enhancements to our rigs. Can you give us a little bit about what that ethos means, especially as we've seen such an explosion of new folks that are getting into off-roading, which is phenomenal, but might not know everything that would go into improving their rig and making it better for those trail experiences.
Yeah. The light bar or lockers before light bar hashtag was spawned by Ian Johnson from Big Tire TV and, Four Wheeler and all the rest of that stuff.
Yep.
It was kind of the form before, or the function before, beauty type thing. You can go and you put all light bars on your rig that you want. Sure, it looks great in the mall parking lot or at your campsite or something. It's not getting you down the road. Excuse me. It's not getting you down the trail. It's not getting you, keeping you from getting stuck or anything. There's no denying, vision is important. You got to be able to see where you're going. But man, if you can't put that power on the ground, all you're seeing is the taillights of the guy in front of you disappear. So,
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that does a really good job of summing it up. And let's talk a little bit about what happens when you start to regear, when you start to put in a locker. Like, how is that helping you put the power down for, let's say, for somebody that may not know what the differences are in those?
So, starting with like the stock type vehicle. Vehicles from the OEM manufacturer, especially you get into the late model vehicles, new Wranglers, the Toyota, stuff like that. The OEM manufacturers, their biggest key goal, as far as they're concerned, is corporate average fuel economy. So they're building that thing with thin wall carcass tires, ultra low drag, this, that, and the other thing, trying to squeak out every last bit of fuel economy that they can. The downside is, really doesn't do you any benefits when you start upgrading stuff. Although some manufacturers have gotten more receptive, you got the Rubicons out there with their OEM lockers. You got the TRD packages and Toyotas where you got factory lockers. Makes a huge benefit for traction and stuff. There's a lot of guys, common misconception is terminology. You get a lot of people not understanding differences between lockers versus limited slips, the pros, the cons, stuff like that.
Sure.
Most vehicles in stock form have what's referred to as an open differential. So that sends power to the tire with the least amount of traction. Great for on the street, great for drivability, very inexpensive to produce. As long as you're keeping all four tires on the ground and it's fairly high traction surface, you're good. Limited slips, they help to balance the power between one side and the other without compromising drivability. So they're great for your light duty off-road rig, dual purpose rig, stuff like that. Lockers come in and lockers are capable of providing 100% of the engine's torque to any tire at any given point in time. So you can go and you can hang one tire off a rock, the other tire just dangling in the air, and 100% of your torque goes to the tire that's still clinging to the rock. So that's really important when you start getting into off-road, being able to get up and over obstacles without a whole bunch of excessive drama, without really beating on your rig. You're able to navigate and just be efficient and effective crawling over stuff. Selectable lockers, there's a lot of different variations of selectable lockers. You've got Eaton with their electric lockers. You got Auburn with some electrics, some other miscellaneous ones. You've got ARB is well known for their air actuated ones. Then of course you've got ours with the Yukon Zip Locker, which is our selectable locker, our air actuated one. Those are really good because those allow you to choose when you want the traction. So day-to-day basis and stuff, or you're just kind of putting around on light trails, or you're say in the campsite and stuff, you don't need that extra traction. You can turn your selectable locker off. You get really good drivability. You can steer really well. You can, you're not digging up everything, just trying to turn around at the campsite stuff like you would with a mechanical locker.
Sure.
So
let's talk a little bit about the Yukon Locker. I see Patrick, he threw a comment in. Hopefully some of the great explanation that we just got from Gus helps answer your question. Can we talk a little bit about the Yukon Locker and why you guys kind of went the way that you did with it, and really the benefits to all our great four-wheel drive enthusiasts that are here on the call with us?
Okay. So stepping back to a basic mechanical locker. So we've got our Yukon Grizzly locker.
Yep.
That is the ultimate in traction. They have the greatest or the best warranty in the industry. You know, brutally strong. They very similar to the good old fashioned Detroit locker that many people know and love. We made some patented design changes. We changed how the load is transferred through it to improve durability, improve drivability, and reduce breakage and carnage. Your old school traditional Detroit locker, if you got really bound up in something and you broke an axle shaft, all of that twisting motion of that axle shaft winding up, when it breaks, it spins back and it would normally shatter the internals in the Detroit locker. We made some changes in it so that it changes that load path, changes how that shock load transfers, eliminates the breakage and stuff. So,
Cool.
While it sucks that, yes, you broke your axle, you still can put 100% of the engine's power to the other tire that still is intact, and it'll still at least be able to transfer that power, help get you out in three-wheel motion if need be or what have you.
Sure.
Our selectable locker, which, like I said, that's our zip locker. When it's unlocked, it's an open carrier, like I was mentioning earlier. So power goes to the tire with the least amount of traction, very smooth, very quiet. Great drivability on the street, no penalty as far as fuel economy or anything like that. But you go and you flip a little switch, your air compressor turns on, primes the system. It takes all a matter of a second or so to do that. When you're coming up to an obstacle that you think you're going to need extra traction for, you flip it on before you get to that obstacle. It gets it a chance to engage. You walk through it. It locks up 100% solid. So both tires are solidly locked together. Both of them rotate at the exact same time, even with one dangling off a cliff face or off a root ball or what have you.
Yeah.
And you drive through it. Brutally strong. Again, has best warranty in the industry. We 100% stand behind those things.
Love that. Love that. I think that's why so many of our fans here on the call are running them in their vehicles, which is awesome to hear. One thing I know we had talked a little bit about beforehand, and we had seen some of y'all's questions coming in before the call, was specifically about Toyotas, right? In regearing those, changing tire sizes, and some dynamics there. They've seen a lot of success in growing their sales volumes. And I'm sure some of our fans here on the phone they're running that vehicle out on these trails. Like, can you talk a little bit about some of the dynamics that you all are seeing in that market, and maybe some of the recommended enhancements that you throw out to all the fans to make to their vehicles to make them better off-road?
Absolutely. So talking Toyotas specifically, we seem to see a lot more of the guys that are new to the overland experience and new to the off-road market getting into Toyotas and stuff. And it's great. We love it. One thing that or at least I see a lot, is guys that really want to try and hyper focus on trying to get everything back to how it was stock. And I kind of mentioned earlier, the factories really cater towards corporate average fuel economy. So they're trying to save every last drop of fuel that they can to try and save, keep themselves out of government penalties and stuff and extra taxes that they have to pay. Downside is, once you start modifying that vehicle, you feel it really bad. Toyotas tend to be a higher revving engine and stuff, and they don't have the bottom end torque like a domestic American vehicle typically has and stuff. So they require turning a little bit extra RPM to get up into that RPM range where the motor naturally wants to pull the vehicle and it gets good fuel economy and it's effective. So to get that drivability, guys go and say they take their Toyota, came stock with 29-inch tires, they put a set of 31s on it, and they go, oh man, this thing's slow all of a sudden. And they're like, man, I got to do something. So, you see guys that are going after superchargers and doing this, and they're putting headers on and exhaust. And they finally start realizing, sure, it helps make the vehicle peppier, but that's usually at a really high RPM is where that occurs. At that bottom the lower RPMs where you're driving normally, you need mechanical gear reduction to get that power to the ground and stuff and make that torque multiplication happen. So, you get the guys that finally realize, oh, maybe I should re-gear. So they go and they take their vehicle with, say, a stock 373 gear, and they go, okay, well, I'll put a set of 456s in it because that realistically, that on paper, the math gets me back to about stock. Well, you don't get quite the same drivability as what stock was, but it puts you back to the stock engine RPM.
Sure.
Well, then you go, you get wheeling and stuff with your buddies again, and you enjoy the overland thing or what have you. You go and you throw a rooftop tent on. Man, it feels like you're suddenly dragging a parachute behind you. You just killed all the aerodynamics that the factory spent so much time trying to get the thing to go down the road, as easily as possible, and you just killed all that. So now you're dragging a parachute. Well, how do I fix that now? Well, you re-gear again.
Yep.
Okay. So now you got the guy goes and throws a set of 488s in it after he just put 456s in. Okay, drivability's back a little bit more. I'm wheeling more with my buddies. And next thing you know, he goes, hey, I want to step up from my 31s to a set of 33s. Man, it's slow again. Here we go again. Money out of the pocket. You go and you dump a set of 529s in it.
Sure.
Okay, now we're doing good again. Now, had you called and talked to somebody first, somebody like me, we've got all sorts of spreadsheets. We can go and we can do the math for you and stuff. And we've got the experience to tell you that realistically, had you gone and put 529s in at stock, even with a stock tire and 529s, you're only going to be turning roughly 1,700 RPM on the freeway at 60 miles an hour. So it's not going to kill your fuel economy. You can go and you can leapfrog all those little teeny incremental changes, and you can go and do one big change and not spend all that money multiple times over and over. And you can take that money and instead you can put it towards other things. You can put it towards traction. You can put it towards, your wheels and tires. You can put it into your suspension. You can put it into your light bars, your winches, your rooftop tents, your, what have you. So it really seems that the people who are new to the sport are really trying to do small micromanaging incremental changes when if you plan ahead, you can make a big change that pays huge benefits across the entire time. And, so that's kind of, I guess, the biggest thing that from my side of the industry, I see that guys are just starting to wake up to.
Okay. No, I think that's super insightful. And I know we've got some specific questions that for Chad and Mark, I see in there. We'll get to those, but hopefully that helps give you some guidance, Gus. That was like a really great summary, I think, of helping forward think to how folks are going to do their builds. One of the things that we had come in quite a bit is rock crawling, overlanding, obviously different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can you talk through a little bit of, I guess in generalities, how would you set up your vehicle differently for an overlanding rig versus a rock crawling rig?
Well, overlanding rigs, to me, that's for most of them, that's going to be something that you're going to go and you're going to want to daily drive on a regular basis. It may not be your everyday daily driver, but you want to be able to drive cross country. You want to be able to go anywhere, do anything with it. That's kind of the spirit of overlanding.
Yeah.
So you need to maintain good drivability, stuff like that. Whereas the guy where his whole focus is rock crawling, you're not quite as concerned with on-road manners as much. You're willing to, sacrifice the on-road experience to favor the off-road experience. So those are the guys that, are going to favor, the super gnarly tires and the really aggressive mud tires, the huge suspension articulation. They're going to be more likely to go with just the straight mechanical lockers instead of a selectable locker, just for the durability, the dependability, just the brute strength of it. The overland guys, they're going to be, a little bit softer suspension, a little bit better drivability, better handling characteristics. They're going to be the guys that are going to normally be looking at selectable lockers. that kind of thing. Usually they're running all-terrain tires. They want it to ride nice. They want it to be quiet. They want to be able to carry a conversation with their wife or their girlfriend or their kids or what have you while they're out wheeling.
Cool. No, I think that helps a lot. And I mean, one thing that we at onX know, and obviously the team at Yukon knows, is Yukon is known for having those options. So one, thanks again for going through all this with us, Gus, because it's super helpful to me. It gives me a lot of insights I didn't know, and hopefully everybody listening as well. I'd be curious to know, what are some of the most common questions or common upgrades that you're seeing coming in now? What are some of the products that for everybody here or that'll be watching on YouTube later that you'd say, hey, you should probably think about this as they start to build out that rig and make it more capable to kind of adventure a little bit further?
Yeah, I'd say that probably the biggest thing is people that are getting new to this, not planning far enough ahead. So when you get into the axles and stuff, it takes a lot of time and effort and money to do any work on a differential. By the time you go to re-gear it, you're looking at, most differentials are roughly 6 to 8 hours to tear down per axle, rebuild and put back together. Up here in the Northwest, labor charges are roughly 150 an hour. So if you're looking at 12 to 16 hours to re-gear front and rear, that's really expensive. You get other parts of the country, maybe labor rates aren't quite as bad and stuff still, but it's a big chunk of change. The other thing that you're looking at is, a lot of times a good shop or a good builder will work things in as a package deal. So if you're looking to re-gear, most installers don't care what they bolt that ring gear to. It could be the stock open carrier, it could be a locker, it could be whatever. It really doesn't affect the labor charge to do the job. At the same time, just like that Jeep guys, Jeeps have these little wimpy drive shaft stock. I mean, they got a little shaft that's roughly the size of my pinky that transfers all the power through it. Sure. And there are known failure points and stuff. And a very common upgrade for a Jeep guy is to do drive shafts. And if you go and you do one, all these modern vehicles have crush sleeves in them that set their bearing preload, and they're a one-time use item. So if you go and you do your gearing and you decide, hey, I just did my gearing, I should have done a drive shaft. Well, now you got to tear everything back apart to replace that little teeny crush sleeve that sets the bearing preload to do the job right. Whereas if you do the drive shaft at the same time as you do the differentials, it's really a no big deal, because instead of bolting the factory yoke onto the differential, they bolt the aftermarket yoke onto it, and then your drive shaft connects to it, and everything's all happy, and you haven't changed any labor charges. So, pre-planning your build is really important. And yeah, it kind of sucks to do all that in one big chunk of change, but it's cheaper in the long run.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense too. As you think about building your vehicles, and I think a lot of us have been guilty of it as we've been getting into the sport, is you're constantly making those incremental changes versus just kind of going all in at the beginning, having that master plan and building to it. It would have saved me some time and money if I would have thought that way to start, but we all learn, right?
Yeah.
We're going to get to some of these questions. I think some of y'all have some great questions that are flowing in. Let me ask you this though, Gus. When should off-roaders start to think about upgrading their stock drivetrain? Like when you're out wheeling and you're doing it, what point do you kind of tip over the cliff and say, I need to make these investments and make some of these upgrades to my vehicle?
Pretty much anytime you start putting bigger tires on. I mean, right off the bat, like we mentioned, they're from the factory, they're geared for fuel economy, not for off-road power and control and everything else. So as soon as you go from a stock tire to a larger, heavier tire, anytime you're changing the aerodynamics of the vehicle, you're putting a rooftop tent on it, you're changing how you want it to function. I mean, as soon as you start doing that, you really should be starting to think about, how do I optimize this? If you get into the gearing game early in the game, you go and you take that torque multiplication, you put it in the axle where it's important and where it's the strongest component, And now you just reduce the amount of stress and strain that the entire rest of your drivetrain sees. So if you put the torque multiplication in the differential, your drive shafts have a longer lifespan. You know, the U joints on your drive shaft have a longer lifespan. You see less load on the transfer case, less load on the transmission, less, if you've got an automatic transmission, less shuttle shifting. Your torque converter locks up. You got less heat and wear and tear there. You've got less load on the engine. Your fuel economy goes up. Your coolant temperatures come down. Heck, even your air conditioning seems to work better because you're turning just a few more RPM and stuff. And, you know, up here in Northwest, we really don't care. We wheel with our windows open. But you get the guys in the South, you probably would like your air conditioning when you're out in the beating sun and on the hard rocks and stuff. So,
For sure. For sure. And I mean, that's a great point that I'd never really considered. Up in the Midwest here, it's a similar case. We'll wheel our windows down, but it's a really good
yeah.
point as we all think about making these enhancements is to consider the whole thing and how much it can impact it. One question, Gus, I'm going to jump in that
Mhm.
we're seeing come up a couple of times is if people have questions about gearing or what types of enhancements to make. I think you alluded to this earlier, but how can a customer get in contact with you or somebody at Yukon to kind of help work through these things that maybe aren't native to them?
So one of the easiest ways during the week, Monday through Friday, during normal business hours, on the Yukon Gear website, we actually have a live web chat. So we have live technical support right there. And one of the best things is if you have questions, I can go and I can drag and drop spreadsheets. I can send you links to the product. I can do all that kind of stuff, and I can put it right on your screen for you. So you can see what I'm talking about. I can, draw pictures on stuff. So if you have a question about a part, I can, explain how that part works. I can send you videos. We've got tons of technical videos and articles. We've got a full YouTube page. I can drag and drop articles straight into that for you rather than go, talking to you on the phone and saying, hey, go to so-and-so and look
Sure.
it up yourself. I can do the lookup for you right there on the web chat. If you have questions, if you're trying to do the gearing yourself, you can go and you can post pictures of your gear patterns on there, and I can give you help as far as setting up your gears. There's all sorts of that stuff that through the live web chat, it makes it really super simple and a lot more interactive and a lot easier to do than it is directly over the phone. That, and it also enables me to, I can multitask. I can help multiple people at the same time, whereas on the phone, I can only talk to one person at a time. So it's a lot faster way to get through, and you're not sitting on hold for forever waiting to talk to somebody on tech support.
That's awesome. And honestly, that's why I think so many of us in the industry trust Yukon is because you do have that live resource ready there to help. And Sarah, I see your question just recently on that. Hopefully that helps you. But that's one of the reasons that makes Yukon one of the trusted onX Offroad Elite partners is because of things like that. They really want to keep you out on that trail longer. So, okay, a couple other things before we get into the specific questions that we've had come in, which are awesome. So I haven't forgot about you folks in the chat. Everyone on this call, I think, has abused their axles in one form or another out on the trip. I know I certainly have. What are some of the processes that yourself and the Yukon team goes through to kind of like vet all the parts out to say, this passes our test, this can handle the abuse that we know everybody's going to put into them when they're out wheeling?
Well, from the nerd side of things, of course, it starts with the engineering team and stuff. They do it all up on the computer. They do their finite stress analysis. They do it in SolidWorks. They model it. They do 3D renderings, blah, blah, blah. It eventually gets to where, we print, print models of it, do basic test print, make sure it functions right, make sure it looks right, doesn't interfere when we physically install it in a test differential or what have you. And then it just comes down to basic R&D. Product testing, abusive customers, the race world. We're really into racing. The go fast guys tend to break stuff a lot more than the guys that park at the mall.
Sure.
So so we do our own R&D. We've got our own R&D facility up here in Everett, Washington. We've got our own engineering labs. We've got 2 multi-million-dollar engineering labs. We can do in-house everything from looking at the hardness of a shaft, not just on the surface, but we can check hardness at multiple points through the shaft. We can check the metallurgy of a part. We can tell you right with a gas chromatograph, I think is what it's called. We can tell you how much nickel there is. We can tell you how much silicon, how much bronze, how much manganese, you name it. We can tell you if the metallurgy is right. We've got Gleason test stands, so we can do in-house testing of gear sets. We've got CMM machines, so you can go and you can take a part. You can do an optical comparison of a part to a print, and it can look at, say, a complex geometric shape, and in a split second, it can go and tell you if any aspect of it is off by even 1,000th of an inch. Whereas, it takes hours for somebody to manually measure everything. We're heavily invested in the industry, and we've got our own product test vehicles. We've got partners in the industry that we test with. We're active with SEMA, the Specialty Equipment Manufacturers Association. We're keyed in with everybody in the industry to try and make sure that, we're providing what everybody needs in the best way possible, and, providing everybody with a great value for it, and the best products in the industry.
Cool. I think that's super cool. And it's definitely a reason why I trust Yukon in my rig. So that's, I think, something that everybody should take away that level of confidence with.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about, shameless onX plug. Gus, before we're getting all the super technical stuff, we'll do something a little more fun to give your brain a break, because everybody's got some stumpers for you in the chat. What's your favorite location that onX Offroad has taken you to?
Well, like I said, recently I was just down at King of the Hammers down in Johnson Valley, California and stuff. It was my first trip ever down there. And if anybody's ever been out there, cell phone service is spotty at best. Being able to download the offline maps and stuff, I could navigate my way around camp. I could get out to the trails. I could figure out, hey, where's Backdoor? Where's Turkey Claw? Where's all the rest of these trails and stuff? I travel, I mentioned earlier, I travel to Phoenix area quite a bit. Every time I'm down there, we're going out wheeling. Every time. And every time it seems like it's a new trail. So, I use onX Offroad. I download the maps. I've got a lot of trails saved on there and stuff. And it's great. I've gotten separated from the group and stuff and been able to find my way back to them and everything. And,
Nice.
It's been great.
Love that. Love that. All right, Gus. I think that's all the preloaded ones of what we've talked through in the chat. We've got a few that are a little bit more specific, and I'm not trying, for everybody that dialed in, not trying to put Gus on the spot. Yukon, as he said earlier, has an incredible team that you can live chat with on the web. So if we don't get to your question today, just know you've got that resource available to you. One of them that came in though, Gus, I'm just gonna work from the top. Let's see. Somebody has a JL with a 272 TK on 35s. Will they see improved hill descent upgrading from a 345 gear to a 488?
Absolutely. Torque multiplication works both ways. So when you're multiplying torque being driven by the engine versus braking torque, it works both ways. So you do improve by regearing not only your hill climbing ability, your power, and your control, but it also helps out as far as descent. So for when you're nosing up to that waterfall or that ledge or whatever, and you're looking for extra control and extra stability coming down it, gearing plays a huge advantage and stuff. And especially for the automatic transmission guys, it helps to keep you from pushing through, so you're not sitting there the engine's not sitting there at an idle trying to push you through that descent stuff. So you get that ability to actually get some engine braking going on.
Cool. Chad, hopefully that helps you. I know Yukon's got some really good solutions that can help make your JL run that much better. Mark had one come in on 22 Tundras. I
Mhm.
don't have the details on it, Mark. Chatting some if you've got them. Do you have some options that can help him out, Gus, if he's looking to improve his gearing and his driveline?
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of them out yet, but yeah, we do have some options. Give me a shout tomorrow or one of these days on the live web chat. I can drag and drop some part numbers like we were talking to get you some pricing, throw you some real world comparisons and stuff in your lap and stuff, and get you taken care of on that.
Cool. Mark, hope that helps. They're awesome. They'll definitely get you hooked up. Scott had one for you, Gus, that I think a lot of people have probably thought about or talked about in whispers is how do Yukon's aftermarket lockers compare to what's coming in stock on a new Jeep?
Okay.
What are the differences? Like, how does it perform differently?
So the stock ones, they're they are geared for an OEM type application. They do have a limited torque input rating and stuff. They are limited in functionality, and the OEM manufacturers really do a lot to try and protect them. So there is torque management in the ECM and everything else to help limit how much power goes through them. Excuse me, as well as how and when it activates and everything else. The OEM is also really good about how it engages and when it'll engage and having the ECM level protection for that so that somebody doesn't just blindly flip a switch in the middle of doing a donut or something like that and have it lock up and either one, pitch them sideways and stuff and send them out of control, or two, just crashing and breaking parts.
Sure.
The aftermarket stuff generally going to be considerably stronger. It's designed right from the get-go with better quality materials. Nodular iron cases versus a standard gray iron case is a perfect example. You get something that's a much more rigid, thicker wall casting. Yeah, it weighs a little bit more, which hurts corporate average fuel economy. Common theme here, but it's stronger. It's going to hold up better to abuse. Aftermarket lockers are going to be designed right from the get-go for being locked up, not for being on the street. So the torque load and the way that the power is delivered through them really is engineered into it with that in mind, not so much the, hey, we want this thing to, go down the road and, Susie's mom's car, it's got to be absolutely quiet while she's going through the drive-through type thing,
Sure.
So, there's huge differences in them. There's differences in how they're actuated, how they're wired, for the selectable ones. They function a little bit differently. Some of them you can even integrate into a OEM type system. So there are guys that will go in like on the JLs and JTs and stuff. If you got a Rubicon and you go and you break the factory one, there's ways to integrate an aftermarket unit in place and still use your factory switches and stuff, maintain that drivability and functionality and user control experience and stuff without, having to go and cut holes and mount switches. And, not that everybody doesn't love switches everywhere, but, you can integrate it. It's great.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So Scott, hopefully that gives you some background, but definitely think about upgrading your stock rig if you're out there wheeling. One that came in from Jacob, Gus, is when to regear and what ratio to regear at. When you're doing the front and the rear, do you do them at the same time? Do you do the same ratio? What would be some kind of guidelines there?
Yeah. So as far as front to rear, yeah, you're always going to wind up gearing the same front and rear, unless you're one of those weird guys in the Midwest that does these weird mud trucks that you got a big tire in the back and a small tire in the front. You got to compensate. That's a whole different off-road scene, and they've got specialty stuff. And I mean, if you're one of those guys, give us a shout. Give me a web chat and stuff. I can help you with that. But for the other 99.9% of everybody out there, yeah, you're going to gear the same ratio front and rear. Some of the common questions that we get regarding that is like 409 versus 410 versus 411. Are they the same? Can they be used together? Absolutely. They're within a few percentage points of each other. and they will 100% interchange, zero drivability issues, stuff like that. So, back in the day, you used to buy a Ford and it would have a 409 gear in the front, a 411 in the back. Perfectly safe to drive it on the street, even in 4 high and stuff, for you Midwest guys out in the snow.
Perfect. Okay. I think last one here from Patrick is, does Yukon offer custom gearing applications? So his example was, if you were to build a bolt-on portal end from scratch, can you kind of help him work through the math on what that would entail?
We don't get into custom manufacturing very much. And if there's a market for it and it's a viable option, yes, we will do mass production of parts, but we don't do like one-off portal gears or one-off this, one-off that. There's enough guys out in the market that are custom machinists and stuff that will do that kind of stuff. And it doesn't quite fit into our production plans and our assembly lines and that kind of thing. So
makes sense. Definitely one-offs are, gosh, who knows, can go a million ways. And we did have one more. I'm sorry, Gus, I psyched this out from Joe. He's got an 89 Toyota pickup with around a 400-pound flatbed. He wants to do 35s and has been looking into 529s. Would you think he'd go up to a 571? That's a really specific question. So Joe, I know I'm putting Gus on the spot trying to get you, but I think they've got the chat too that can definitely help you through this.
Yeah. So for that era Toyota, I would say anything that's over a 31-inch tall tire, just jump straight into a 529 right off the bat. 4,000-pound flatbed, that's huge on a Toyota. I mean, that's almost twice the truck's vehicle weight right off the get-go. So good luck suspension wise on that one. But 529s would be the way to go. 571s on those old Toyota 8 inches is kind of a cringe thing. They're great for the old school back in the 80s when you had the Toyota mini truck craze and everybody was rolling around on a set of 44s and the Skyjacker 11 leaf, 12-inch things. You had your 6-tube Smitty-built roll bar and everything else, and all it ever did was drove down to the local mall, and you hung out with your buddies at the mall.
Sure.
579s were a great option for that. The problem is that pinion head gets to be so small, you have so little contact area, it's really not a super strong ratio. So while the extra torque multiplication is great to try and compensate for the mini truck monster trucks and stuff, it's really not enough for the strength for an off-road rig.
Okay, I think I've got a little bit easier one too. Sarah's popped one in as well. 19 JL Rubicon on 37s. What would you recommend ratio-wise if she's looking out?
538s.
Okay.
538s. The new modern Jeeps and stuff, they got that amazing 8-speed automatic transmission. Has a huge double overdrive in it. Everybody sits there and you get the old school wheelers. Like me, I mentioned early on that I'm a Scout guy. Back then, we didn't have overdrive in our transmissions. We're lucky if we had more than 4 gears. Period. You got eight gears in high range, another 8 gears in low range and stuff. But you've got that huge double overdrive stuff, and it's so tall that even on a 35-inch tall tire, a 35-inch tire, I personally recommend a 513. That puts it right about the 1,800 RPM range, cruise down the freeway and stuff. Gets that motor up where it's making a little bit more torque. Keeps that thing from constantly shuttle shifting. You get up into a 37-inch tall tire, you got even more wind load, more rotating mass that you're trying to compensate. The 538s do an amazing job of compensating for that. Helps your transmission life. If you've got a Wrangler, turn the little option on your dash so you can see what gear you're in. You're going to be surprised what gear you're actually going down the freeway in. A lot of them stock, hardly ever get out of 6th gear.
Sure. All right, Sarah, cool. Hopefully that helped you. Folks, thank you. Thank you for your interaction. Thanks for jumping through all this. Gus, Thank you. I mean, what an incredible resource. I didn't flip any slides while we are doing that. I got too wrapped up in all of Gus's awesome answers. So sorry,
Yeah.
team, if you want to see pretty pictures. Um, but Gus, thank you. Hopefully everybody in the call, we try to answer all of your questions. But if you've got other ones, Yukon Gear and Axle, they have everything you could possibly ever need for this stuff. And they've got great resources like Gus that are going to answer all of your questions in depth. So, Gus, I don't know if there's anything else you kind of want to say on Yukon overall. And the only thing we didn't talk about is Yukon is part of kind of a larger company that has a lot of the other upgrades that we talked about today. Do you want to touch a little bit on that before we start to lose folks and we get to the giveaway piece?
Sure. Like you alluded to, we are part of Randy's Worldwide, our larger parent company. We are part of as Randy Worldwide. Our sister companies, we got USA Standard Gear, which is kind of more of a stock replacement type gear set stuff, but they've got a lot of products like the Spartan Locker and the new Spartan Limited slips for the front ends of Jeeps. We've got Icon Vehicle Dynamics, hugely popular with the Toyota off-road crowd as far as suspension. They do wheels and tires. They do also do Jeeps and some full-size truck stuff. We recently acquired Carly Suspension, huge in the go fast off-road game with the full-size Dodges and Fords and stuff. Amazing stuff, huge articulation, suspension. We've got Dynatrack axles. They're one of our sister companies. We've got some Brota drivetrain. We do manual transmission, transfer cases, lots of reman stuff, component parts for your manual transmissions, transfer cases, all sorts of stuff like that. So yeah, the whole Randy's Worldwide family of brands is amazing. We've got all sorts of partnerships, like I mentioned, out in the industry. And now that we've partnered with some of these other just premium companies and stuff, that just enhances our ability to do R&D and build all these great packages and stuff, and so that things complement each other.
So definitely, folks, as you're thinking about upgrading your rig, I saw a bunch of comments starting to fly in of folks saying, man, I need to upgrade a lot of stuff. Yukon and all their sister brands within Randy's Worldwide are great resources for that. So definitely something to take a look at. And it's a really good resource to have on hand, especially with experts like Gus that can help get you through it. So I think that's it. Gus, did I miss anything? Anything else that you want to kind of touch on before we switch to the giveaway portion of tonight?
I could talk all night, but yeah, I don't want to drag everybody out. Stuff I know everybody wants to get some swag.
For sure. So speaking of swag, the great folks at Yukon Gear, of course, continue to be great partners to all of us and everybody here as part of onX Elite that attended tonight. You'll see that link that's in the chat right there. If you click through to that, go ahead and enter your name. Within 24 hours, we'll be following up. The great folks at Yukon donated $350 gift cards to help get you to some of those upgrades that we've been talking about a lot tonight, as well as a swag bag. And we'll be doing some onX beanies as well. So you will be fully kitted out, either head to toe and under your Jeep or Toyota or whatever rig you've got, a Scout. So please click through, enter, and please enter to win that piece of it. Dennis, I missed your Chevy. I apologize. Don't forget our bow tie funds as well. That's it, folks. That's all that we have tonight. I really do want to thank you for tuning into the first ever onX Offroad Elite Masterclass with our good friends at Yukon Gear and Axle. It's been super educational for me. Don't forget to check them out on the web at yukongearandaxle.com. Check out all their social medias at Yukon Gear and Axle, and all of ours as well. Check us out at onX Offroad against all your favorite social channels. Gus, thanks again so much tonight for carving out some time and being such great partners along the way with us.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Glad to answer some questions and stuff and get people taken care of. And absolutely hit us up on that live web chat and stuff for anything that you need some more detailed questions and answers on and stuff. And of course, hit us up on social media.
Absolutely. And folks, we will see you out on the trails. Upgrade your rigs, Continue to adventure further, and thank you again for attending tonight. We look forward to seeing you out there.